September 30th, 1955. Highway 466, California. A silver Porsche 550 Spyder collides with a Ford Tudor at an intersection near Chalem. The impact is catastrophic. Metal shreds. Glass explodes. A 24-year-old movie star is pulled from the wreckage, his neck broken, his body shattered. He dies on the way to the hospital. The other driver walks away. Not a scratch, not a charge, not even a ticket. For 68 years, the world believed it was just a tragic accident. Speed, youth, bad luck. But on his deathbed in 2023, that driver, Donald Turnupseed, whispered something to his daughter that changed everything. A confession that turned Hollywood's most famous crash into its darkest cover-up. Here is the story. Picture America in the fall of 1955. Eisenhower is president. Rock and roll is taking over the airwaves. Television sets are glowing in living rooms across the country, and in Hollywood a new kind of star is being born. Not the polished, studio-manufactured leading men of the past. No, this is something raw, dangerous, real. James Dean. He wasn't like Clark Gable or Cary Grant. He didn't smile for the cameras. He didn't play the game, he mumbled. He slouched. He wore jeans and a leather jacket like armor, and an entire generation saw themselves in him, the misunderstood kid. The rebel, the outsider screaming to be heard. By September of 1955, Dean had filmed 3 movies. Only one, East of Eden, had been released, but it was enough. The studio knew what they had. Rebel Without a Cause was set to premiere in a month, a giant who was still in post-production. James Dean was about to become the biggest star in the world. But he had another love, something even more consuming than acting. Speed. Dean lived for racing. He'd bought his first Porsche earlier that year, a white 356 Speedster. He drove it everywhere. Fast. Too fast. His friends worried. His studio worried. Warner Brothers had even inserted a clause in his contract forbidding him from racing while filming a giant. The moment production wrapped, Dean went straight to the dealership. He traded in the white Porsche for something more serious. A Porsche 550 Spyder, silver with racing stripes. Oh! A pure racing machine. He had his nickname painted on the back in cursive script, a little bastard. His mechanic, Rolf Wutherick, warned him, "This car is not forgiving. You have to respect it." Dean just grinned. On the morning of September 30th, Dean woke up in his rented house in Sherman Oaks. The sun was bright. The air was warm. Perfect driving weather. He was scheduled to race that weekend at the Salinas sports car races. His plan was to drive the Spyder up to Salinas himself, get a feel for the car, break it in. His friends begged him to trailer it. Too dangerous, they said. The car is too low. Other drivers won't see you. But Dean refused. He wanted to drive. He needed to feel the road. Around 1:30 in the afternoon, Dean and Wutherick climbed into the Spyder. Another friend, Bill Hickman, followed behind in Dean's Ford station wagon, towing an empty trailer. Photographer Sanford Roth rode with Hickman. He wanted to document the trip. They headed north on Route 99, then cut west toward Paso Robles. Dean was flying, relaxed, happy. This was freedom. Around 3:30, a highway patrolman pulled them over near Bakersfield, speeding. 65 and a 55. Dean took the ticket with a smile. Wutherick remembered him saying, "They're making great time." They stopped for gas and a Coke in Blackwell's corner. A few locals recognized Dean. He signed an autograph, joked with the attendant. Wutherick recalled the last thing Dean said before they got back on the road. "We'll take it easy." But 20 miles later, as the sun began its slow descent toward the western hills, James Dean pressed the accelerator, and he never slowed down. To understand what happened on that highway, you have to understand the intersection. Highway 466 and Highway 41. A lonely stretch of California blacktop cutting through farmland and rolling hills. No traffic lights, no stop signs on 466, just a faded yield marker on 41. Drivers coming from the east on 466 had the right of way. Drivers on 41 were supposed to yield and wait. But the intersection was deceptive, optical illusion territory. From certain angles it looked empty even when it wasn't. Distances were hard to judge, speed was hard to gauge. And in the late afternoon, when the sun hung low and cast long shadows, it became downright dangerous. James Dean was heading west on 466, doing somewhere between 85 and 90 miles per hour. The Spyder sat low to the ground, just 43 inches tall. In the fading light, it was nearly invisible. At the same time, a 23-year-old Cal Poly student named Donald Turnupseed was driving east on 41 in his black and white Ford Tudor sedan. He was heading home to Tulare after a day of classes. His mind was probably on dinner, on homework, on the weekend ahead. He approached the intersection. He looked left. He looked right. He saw nothing. So he turned left onto Highway 466 directly into Dean's path. Wutherick saw the Ford first. He screamed, "He's got to stop. He's got to see us." Dean saw it a split second later. No time to brake. No time to brake. No time to swerve. He yanked the wheel hard to the right, trying to go around the Ford's rear end. But Turnupseed, realizing his mistake, hit his brakes and began to straighten out, humming his car right back into Dean's line. The Spyder's left front fender clipped the Ford's passenger door. At nearly 90 miles per hour, the impact was immediate, violent, catastrophic. The Spyder's front end crumpled like tinfoil. The steering column broke loose and slammed into Dean's chest. His head snapped forward, then whipped back. His neck broke instantly. The car spun, flipped, and came to rest on its side in a shallow ditch. Wutherick was thrown from the car, broken jaw, broken leg, but alive. Dean was still inside, trapped beneath the wreckage, blood everywhere. The Ford fishtailed, spun, and stopped in the middle of the road. Turnupseed was shaken, but unhurt. Not a scratch. Within minutes, bystanders arrived. A man named Tom Frederick pulled over and ran to the Spyder. He tried to lift the wreckage off Dean. He couldn't. Dean's body was pinned. Frederick checked for a pulse. There was none. An ambulance arrived. Then another. They loaded Dean and Wutherick into separate vehicles and raced toward Paso Robles War Memorial Hospital. But everyone already knew James Dean was dead. Quick question. Have you ever had a secret that was eating you alive? Something you knew would destroy lives if it came out, so you buried it deep and never spoke of it again? Let us know in the comments, because Donald Turnupseed carried that kind of secret for 68 years, and it nearly killed him long before his body finally gave out. The official investigation began the next morning. California Highway Patrol officers swarmed the scene. They measured skid marks. They photographed the wreckage. They interviewed witnesses, and their conclusion came fast, too fast. No charges, no citations. The accident was ruled unavoidable. Both drivers were going too fast for conditions. Visibility was poor. Dean's car was too low. Turnupseed simply didn't see him. Tragic, but no one's fault. Turnupseed was free to go. And for the next 68 years, that was the story the world believed. The official version. The sanitized version. James Dean died because he drove too fast. Because he was reckless. Because he was young and stupid and thought he was invincible. Donald Turnupseed became the man who killed James Dean by accident. And he disappeared. He finished his degree. He moved to Tulare. He became an electrician. He married, had kids, lived quietly. He never gave an interview. Not once. Reporters hunted him for decades. Biographers knocked on his door. Documentary filmmakers camped outside his house. He refused them all. He wouldn't even say a no comment. He just closed the door. People respected his silence. They assumed he was traumatized, guilt-ridden, a man who made a terrible mistake and couldn't live with the weight of it. So they left him alone. But Donald Turnupseed wasn't staying quiet because of guilt. He was staying quiet because he'd been paid to. In the spring of 2023, Donald Turnupseed was dying. Lung cancer. Stage 4. The doctors gave him weeks, maybe a month. He was 91 years old. His daughter, Catherine, flew in from Colorado to be with him. She sat beside his hospital bed in Tulare, holding his frail hand, watching the life drain out of him. And one night, as the morphine drip kept the pain at bay, Turnupseed opened his eyes and looked at his daughter. "I need to tell you something," he whispered. His voice was thin, raspy, desperate. Catherine leaned closer. "What is it, Dad?" "About the accident. About the accident. About James Dean." Catherine's chest tightened. Her father had never spoken about it, not once in her entire life. "What about it?" she asked. Turnupseed's eyes filled with tears. "It wasn't an accident." Silence. Catherine's mind spun. "What do you mean?" "I saw him," Turnupseed said. "We saw the Porsche. I saw it coming. I had plenty of time to wait. Because I was told to turn. I was told to pull out in front of him." Catherine felt the room tilt. Told by who? Turnupseed closed his eyes. A tear slid down his cheek. A man from the studio, Warner Brothers, 2 days before the accident, a man came to my apartment in San Luis Obispo. He knew my name. He knew my schedule. He knew I'd be driving home that Friday on Highway 41. Dad, what are you saying? He offered me money. $10,000. Cash. He said James Dean was becoming a problem. Too wild. Too unpredictable. He was costing them millions in insurance. They couldn't control him, so they needed him gone. But it had to look like an accident. Catherine's hand flew to her mouth. He showed me a photo of the car, the silver Spyder. He told me the route Dean would be taking. He told me the approximate time he'd pass through the intersection. He said all I had to do was turn left at the exact moment he approached, make it look like I didn't see him. The low car, the bad angle, the setting sun, it would all make sense. And you did it? Turnupseed sobbed. I was 23. I was 23. I was broke. I was stupid. I don't know what I thought. That maybe they were exaggerating. That maybe it would just scare him. I didn't think he'd actually die, but he did. I killed him, Turnupseed whispered. I murdered James Dean. And I've lived with it every single day since. Catherine was shaking. Who did they pay you? 3 days after the crash. A different man. Same envelope. $10,000 in cash and a warning. If I ever told anyone, they'd make sure I ended up like Dean. Did you keep the money? Turnupseed nodded. Nodded. I used it to finish school, to buy our first house. I built my whole life on blood money. Why didn't you ever say anything? Because I was a coward. Turnupseed died 4 days later. Catherine was beside him. She held his hand as he took his last breath, and then she faced an impossible choice. Tell the world what her father confessed and destroy his name forever, or bury the secret with him and let James Dean's death remain an accident. She struggled for months. She spoke to lawyers, to journalists, to historians. Some believed her, others thought she was delusional, grief-stricken, making it up for attention. But then she found the proof. Catherine Turnupseed spent 6 months going through her father's belongings, old boxes, dusty photo albums, papers stuffed into filing cabinets in the garage, and in a lockbox hidden beneath a false bottom in his workshop. She found it. A plain manila envelope. No markings, sealed with tape that had yellowed with age. Inside were 3 things. First, a black and white photograph of James Dean's Porsche 550 Spyder, the same car. Same racing stripes, taken from a distance, dated 2 weeks before the crash. Second, a handwritten note on Warner Brothers letterhead, no signature. Just 2 sentences. A Friday, September 30. Highway 466 and 41. 5:45 p.m. and 3rd, a cashier's check stub. Dated October 3rd, 1955, made out to a D. Turnupseed. Amount $10,000. Catherine took the envelope to a private investigator, then to a forensic document analyst, then to a former LAPD detective who specialized in cold cases. Every expert said the same thing. The materials were authentic. The letterhead matched Warner Brothers stationery from the 1950s. The check stub was real. The photograph appeared to have been taken with surveillance equipment. But there was a problem. Proving a conspiracy from 68 years ago is nearly impossible. The people involved are dead. The studio has changed hands a dozen times. Records from that era are gone, destroyed, lost. And Warner Brothers' legal team made it very clear. Any attempt to publish these allegations would be met with a defamation lawsuit so aggressive it would bankrupt her. So Catherine made a different choice. She gave the evidence to a documentary filmmaker named Marcus Hinton. He'd spent 20 years researching James Dean's death. He believed, like many others, that something didn't add up about the official story. Hinton took the evidence and started digging. He tracked down relatives of former Warner Brothers executives. He found memos buried in private collections. He interviewed retired studio workers who remembered the whispers, and a picture emerged. In 1955, James Dean was worth more dead than alive. His 3 films, East of Eden, A Rebel Without a Cause, and A Giant, would go on to gross over $200 million. Adjusted for inflation, that's nearly $2 billion today. Dead at 24, Dean became a legend, an icon frozen in time. Forever young, forever beautiful, forever rebellious, but alive. He was a nightmare for the studio. He refused to sign long-term contracts. He fought with directors. He showed up late. He got into bar fights. He was openly bisexual at a time when that could destroy a career. And worst of all, he was obsessed with racing, an activity that could end his life and the studio's investment at any moment. Oh. Warner Brothers had taken out a $2 million insurance policy on Dean during the filming of A Giant, but the policy had a clause. If Dean died while racing, the payout was void. So they had a choice: control him, which was impossible, or eliminate him in a way that looked like a tragic accident on a public highway. And if Donald Turnupseed's confession is true, they chose the latter. Hinton's documentary, The Little Bastard Conspiracy, was released in late 2024. It included the deathbed confession, the photographs, the check stub, the witness statements. It was immediately pulled from streaming platforms. Warner Brothers issued a statement calling it a baseless, irresponsible, and defamatory. They threatened legal action. YouTube took down every upload. The film disappeared, but the story didn't. Because the truth, once it's out, doesn't go back in the box. James Dean died at 24. He made 3 films. He lived fast. He burned bright, and then he was gone. For 68 years, the world mourned him as a tragic victim of his own recklessness. A cautionary tale about youth and speed in living without limits. But if Donald Turnupseed's confession is true, and the evidence suggests it is, then James Dean didn't die because he drove too fast. He died because he refused to be controlled. He died because he chose freedom over fame. Because he lived by his own rules. Because he was too wild, too honest, too real for a system that demanded conformity. And that made him dangerous. The studios didn't just own your image back then. They owned you. Your time, your body, your soul. And if you refused to play along, they buried you. One way or another. James Dean was buried on October 8, 1955 in Fairmount, Indiana. Thousands attended. His mother's pastor gave the eulogy. They lowered him into the ground in a simple casket, and the world moved on. But somewhere in Tulare, California, Donald Turnupseed woke up every morning and looked at himself in the mirror. And he knew what he'd done. He lived 58 more years than James Dean. But he never really lived at all. So here's the question: if you knew the truth about something that would destroy reputations, shatter legacies, and rewrite history, would you speak up, or would you stay silent to protect yourself? Because that's the choice we all face, every single day. Tell the truth and face the consequences, or live with the lie. Donald Turnupseed chose the lie, and it ate him alive from the inside out. James Dean chose the truth, and it got him killed. But 68 years later, we're still talking about James Dean. We still watch his films. We still see his face on posters and t-shirts. We still feel his spirit. Nobody remembers Donald Turnupseed. And that tells you everything you need to know about the price of truth and the cost of silence. And unfortunately, they don't make men like James Dean anymore.